Hello, my name is Kenneth Haggerty. I am the Digital Initiatives Coordinator here at the University Libraries. I manage the University of Memphis Digital Commons, which currently holds special collections, government publications, and electronic theses and dissertations. However, in the near future, the Digital Commons will also be the home to several different types of scholarly works in the form of faculty publications, open access journals, and then we're going to continue to expand the Digital Commons platform where there's going to be opportunities for student research as well as conference presentations to be published. And so these will have an opportunity to be more widely seen through a University of Memphis-based platform. I wanted to quickly just begin with as you're in graduate programs, one of the best things to do is to present and attend at conferences as an opportunity not only to get feedback, but as a way to meet future collaborators. I remember early in my doctoral program, I was fortunate enough to be provided with some funding for travel. And there was an expectation to attend certain conferences. And these conferences helped me meet and develop several research projects. One example that I'll give that Carl will know about is at the University of Missouri, I often presented at LISCSA, which is the Library and Information Science Graduate Student Association at the University of Missouri, both our alma maters. And during those I'll use that opportunity for that local university-based conference to often present on the early stages of a research project. And so, for example, I presented on the early stages of a project titled The International Student Perceptions of Libraries. And this is a project that I was asked initially by a older doctoral researcher to just help by transcribing and analyze certain data. And this early in this process with doing the kind of a works in progress presentation, we continued to do analysis, and then the full study upon completion, we were able to present this at a conference in Rome. And then following this, we decided to include our findings in the form of a book chapter. So that just kind of shows how an initial works in progress presentation at a university or departmental program really can help shape the eventual development of a scholarly communication project. Another example is presenting, often they have works in progress posters. I would highly recommend doing this. My first peer-reviewed journal article actually began as a poster just for a usability study where a professor at another institution saw the poster and was asked if I was interested in helping conduct another usability study on a website that had nothing to do with the website of the poster that I was presenting on. But he wanted some help analyzing, doing a usability study, and thus presenting a works in progress poster on a different topic, but it did allow me to display certain skills and interests that I had. This is what eventually helped lead me to my first peer-reviewed journal article. My point is, early in your academic career, keep an eye out for scholarly communications opportunities. And the same goes with your dissertation. Writing your dissertation really is an opportunity for future research projects and collaborations. So what are some things that I learned while writing my dissertation? I had a professor who once told me that the reason that you go into a doctoral program is that you have a research question or topic that you were just dying to discover the answer. Otherwise, there's a good chance that you could be kind of miserable while you're going through the process of writing your dissertation. I did my dissertation on the copyright state of play of documentary filmmaking and film archives, and it was because I did my research on film studies, a topic that was of great interest to me, that I had the opportunity to do interviews with documentary filmmakers, and it made the process of writing my dissertation, while certainly challenging, it was certainly not miserable. I do wish, looking back though, that I had thought a little bit more about what I would do with the content of my dissertation while I was writing it. I ended up getting a book chapter out of the couple chapters, but I think if I had thought a little bit more while I was writing it on how to split the chapters into different publications, I could have gotten a lot more out of my work, specifically thinking about maybe my methodology and my findings section, which I didn't end up really getting as much out of upon reflection. And then also looking back, I wish I had relied a little more on citation management systems. Back, and this was 6 years ago, but I definitely used more of the folder on the desktop than I should have. Where the reality is, I think I would have saved a lot of time and been better organized if I had took the time to master Mendeley or Zotero or EndNote. And then I also, looking back, I wish I had thought about gaining more knowledge of the journals in my field. And then now there are very quick ways and easy ways to get journal recommendations, such as Springer Journal Suggester. And I wish I just spent a little bit more time becoming aware and then thinking about what journals would fit with the research I was doing while writing my dissertation. So what is scholarly communications? Simply, scholarly communications is publishing or any form of communication of scholarly work with an audience. And the fact is that some disciplines will require you to publish parts of your dissertation before you graduate, or so I'm told, while others, it's not really a requirement. And that's kind of the situation I was in, where it was a good dissertation's a done dissertation, where I've talked to my brother who's in a PhD program in history, and he has to publish chapters of his dissertation before his defense. And so it really depends on the field that you're in and talking with your committee. But in either case, though, the point is your dissertation is only the start of a bigger research agenda. No matter what field, the truth is that in a highly competitive job market, even for adjunct appointments, a record of publication and presentation can really help you stand out and help your application move from a large pile to a small pile. If your research is a large part of your CV and you have a lot of peer-reviewed journal articles that are high quality, those in your academic discipline will certainly take notice. So regardless, it is never too early to start thinking about publishing and how to position your work for publication. And so while you're working on your dissertation, the one thing this week that you should be thinking about in your brain is, what can I be doing with this after I defend? Because that's certainly, it's really completing your dissertation is not the end, even though you can kind of relax. If you're doing it right, you'll have other opportunities for future research moving forward. So next, I want to talk a little bit about the steps. Most dissertation, this is after writing your dissertation, most dissertations are not really monographic. You can't just take your dissertation and put it into a book. It is a rare exception that the material topic format is either fit for a book or that it would be accepted for it. And most publishers will tell you, even if it is, it will require a lot of editing to make it into a book. So if not a book, then an option would be journal articles. And this is what happens to most dissertation. Chapters are broken up, combined, or just edited and published as articles. And a lot of this depends on your exact dissertation format. But if anything, it is also the best way to conceive of your dissertation. It's not just a giant book, but think of it as a series of articles or book chapters. I also want to mention here that the content you write can be transformed often into additional publications. And I speak on this from experience that even though my dissertation was on a topic, film studies, I was able to take the heart of that content, rewrite it, transform it, and turn that into a book chapter in the digital humanities. I was able to take the legal terminology and cases, the knowledge that I had gained from writing my dissertation, and just kind of write that in a different discipline, the digital humanities, from a library and information science specific and film studies. So regardless, the next step with publishing, once you know what you are going to do with the research, is figure out the journals and publishers that are most relevant in your field and deal with your topic and see what might be a good fit. If you don't know where to start with your own bibliography. If you were pulling from articles in these journals for your own dissertation, odds are they might be a good place to start for placement. Another good option is to start talking up to scholars in your field. And then there's also certainly websites and places you can go to kind of get an idea of the different journals in your field. There's something called Browsing that you can use. I'll show you how to get to that. And then often many LibGuides can cover some of the journals that may be relevant to your field, and some of the subject areas that you may cover with some of your research from your dissertation. While you should be realistic with who you submit to, it can pay to target the top tier publications to begin. You don't want to just limit yourself to lower tier journals or publishers just for a CV line. And plus, for reasons discussed next, you can get a lot out of even if you get a rejection. And so pertaining to rejection, it's something that you really need to prepare for, get used to it. And it's unfortunate, but it's really a fact of life in our line of work. But even in rejection, you can really get something out of it. Most journals, even when you are rejected, will send you the peer reviewer's comments and feedback, sometimes dealing not only why the suggested rejection or revise and resubmit, but the ways you can improve the article and then maybe submit to a more relevant journal for your research. There's a joke that reviewer number 2 is always the one that gets you. He's the jerk most of the time. Although reviewer 2 often can provide you with some very valuable feedback. I know right now on one of my research projects, I'm on my, I believe, 5th journal to submit. And unfortunately, each time it takes a few months, of course, after submitting. So this is something I've been working on literally for over a year. And in general, the etiquette is you can only submit to one journal at a time. And so it really it's a process that is time consuming. If you get lucky, or if it's very high quality and it meets the journal standards. Sometimes if you're lucky, 3 to 6 months, but a lot of times you'll go through journal after journal after journal to try to find the perfect fit. And so, yeah, it can get a little bit frustrating. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the formatting. So formatting, this is where it really pays off to do your research. Journals have style guides that loosely follow your standard, maybe like APA or MLA. But sometimes there can be changes from how you initially wrote your research article. And this is especially true if you are publishing in, let's say, a foreign journal where you might need to change your spellings or formatting. Plus, they will usually have rules for charts, diagrams, pictures, captions. and how to submit them. And you're responsible for making these corrections. The in-house editor is mainly there for like simple cleanup, not typesetting. The university libraries, and I saw that Carl posted this on chat, has some great research guides on citation styles, on citation management resources, and I can kind of briefly show you after the presentation on how to get to these. Book proposals are a bit of a different beast. You don't just send your entire manuscript usually. You send them a proposal that includes things such as an outline, potential length, chapter summaries, possible recommended reviewers that you want, similar works in the market. And so often there's a whole lot more, but every press has a slightly different format. And some may want a brief description, and then we'll let you know if they're interested in the full proposal. And then they will ask for a completed manuscript when it is finished. And once again, this is something that can differ varying depending on the different fields. It is really a whole different process, book proposals, and can be even more time consuming than writing the entire thing. And yes, the manuscript sometimes needs to be done to not be done before submitting the entire proposal. So all you have to do is submit a book chapter abstract. Sometimes it depends on what they require. However, I would recommend at least having quite a bit of the content before submitting a book proposal, just to prevent having to really rush through the process of meeting a deadline, which is something I did have to do back in September, where we had a pretty high word count, like 5,000 to 6,000 words, and we had initially just submitted an abstract and really had to go through a rush to complete the entire book chapter before the deadline. The bottom line is that you really need to do your research. You need to pick your shots, and you really need to be aware of the particulars before you start firing off random emails, asking questions that you may be able to find on a website. If you are in an academic job, see if your library has a dedicated scholarly communications person who can help you through these processes. And then also when submitting the journals, one thing that I've started doing is emailing the editor my title and abstract, just to get their immediate feedback, to see if my particular article was a fit for their journal. And this has saved me a lot of time, because they've written back before and just said, looks interesting, but this doesn't fit with our journal, and that prevented me from submitting, having to wait 3 or 4 months, and then just getting the rejection because it was not the appropriate fit. That saved me time just by emailing the editor, and a lot of times they'll just get right back to you. Identifying quality. There are not exactly good or there are a lot of not exactly good or ethical publishers out there. There's a lot of predator journals that can often charge you to publish after little or no peer reviewed, unfortunately, no editing, and they just prey on tons of academics who just need CV items for jobs and tenures. And there's certainly a lot of lists out there, some of which are subject to much debate among people, but the bottom line is you need to be aware and do your research on the quality of the journal that you are submitting to. Vanity Presses is something else that's out there. These are more for books rather than articles, but they'll publish your journal as is, maybe for a fee or maybe for free, but mainly they plan on making money by selling their book to libraries for high prices. And many will not claim to be a vanity press, but there is little review or other services that you can expect from them. And so that's something really, it once again shows that you got to do your homework to actually see where you're going to try to publish, if not the chapters of your dissertation, a research article that you're writing. That is not to say that the scholarship in these, there's no scholarship in these works at all. However, you might not get any quality feedback, and odds are the work will not be read as widely as it could be. So really, the point is you want to do your research to see the quality of the journals that you are submitting to, just so you can get the most out of your hard work, out of the research that you've conducted. One way these journals get by is that their names are very close often to legit journals, and they do that on purpose. So you want to make sure of that, and to make sure that you are actually submitting to the journal you want to. There's a lot of journals out there, and often a lot of them sound exactly the same. I know all this kind of can sound overwhelming and scary. And so, but it is just shows and displays the importance of being on guard, because you really have to look out for yourself. One type of publication that will charge, but is legitimate, and is something that there's an entire movement really, is the open access movement. These publishers, and there are lists and ways of telling whether it's a legit open access journal, not a predatory journal. But the main thing is with an open access is they make their content freely accessible without subscription or paywalls. And I know you can look through Elsevier to search for open access journals. I believe DOAJ is another one, and then there's a list on what's called Springer Open that provides a list of open access journals. So that might be something to consider. And then also, there are now ways that you can quickly just go, it's called Shimago, that you can go and look at the journal rank. So higher quality have a higher rank on that particular website, and that's something to consider. That's actually where I go to consider where I may want to publish. And once, as I mentioned earlier, consider going with the top tier journals first, and then kind of moving down the list as you continue to submit to those varying journals. So going forward, while you're deep in your dissertation mode, it pays to be thinking ahead. Some of you may have already gotten a publication or two in the works, and that's great. I know that I had the one that I mentioned, the works in progress poster. I was lucky enough to get that published while I was working on my dissertation. And then really the skills that I developed while I was in the doctoral program have really led to publications that I've gotten since. Be thinking about the skills that you can continue to develop. As I mentioned earlier, writing your dissertation is just the beginning. However, also think about all the opportunities that are out there just to write, including reviews, essays, co-authoring works. I know this is something that can vary by field, but really I've been lucky enough to collaborate with a bunch of different people, and just going back to the beginning, that can often be done through going to conferences, working on even like something as small as a poster, but co-authored work can definitely be a way to help improve your own writing and get a lot of publications out of it. Watch for listservs that call for book chapters and contributions, maybe perhaps to a special issue. Gone are the days of tenure where only a few articles or a book, including University of Memphis, which we went just are going to an R1 institution. They're slowly moving to a post-tenure model, which means that you have to continually keep up with your research, publications, and presentations until you retire. It's very competitive out there. And so just always be thinking about the skills that you're developing. And always keep an eye out for collaborations, because that's a way that you can continually keep those research publications churning out and adding those to your CV. Publish early, publish often, and think about the many and varying ways and types of scholarly communication and how you can continually build upon research projects that you're interested in. Okay. With that, thank you for attending. Do you have any questions?